Well, the new Batman movie's out, and the question becomes, what is a superhero movie? Today on Comm Talk, I'm joined by the crew of the Bottom Shelf to talk about that very question.
Glix, what is going on?
We are receiving a signal from a new area on the planet Geekery.
All right, let's see what the planet has for us today.
Opening comms in 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to episode 126 of Comm Talk, the podcast extension of Geek Devotions, a show from devoted geeks who are devoted to letting you know that you're loved. I'm Dallas, and today, ladies and gentlemen, I am joined by a very, very merry crew of bandits that have stolen my heart. The crew of the Bottom Shelf. Hello, guys.
I give it a bottom shelf, borderline dumpster fire.
Oh, there you go. Okay, end of show. Let me introduce you guys. That first voice you heard was John. John, how you doing, man?
I'm fine.
Good. Glad to have you here. And then we have next to him the Irishman himself, Kevin. How you doing, bud?
Completely horrible. Why am I here? What was going on? This isn't the Bottom Shelf.
It's starting to feel like it's more and more every moment. And then we have the newest member to the Bottom Shelf, Branson the Boykin.
Oh, it's the Boykin now. Okay. All right. Good deal.
Well, it's better to be the Boykin than a Boykin.
Oh, well, I guess so.
Yeah.
I'll have to tell my dad. I have to tell my dad, I am the Boykin now. Look at me. Look at me. I'm the Boykin now.
Oh, my gosh. I'm kind of scared of how Bob would respond to that. Anyways, hey guys, this is a really special episode of Comm Talk, not the Bottom Shelf. Which, if you aren't familiar with the Bottom Shelf is it's the podcast extension of Geek Devotions, where we talk about terrible movies. And these amazing guys and I, we get together twice a month and we review terrible movies.
And this episode was inspired by the new Batman movie, so it only made sense for the four of us to get together and talk about
Shut your mouth.
There's a reason why this isn't on the Bottom Shelf feed, but just for a fun exercise.
You should listen to the Bottom Shelf. It's completely rubbish shelf from what I've heard last time. Horrible.
So for a fun exercise, what is the worst movie that we've covered for you guys? Like we've watched and we talked about. What is the worst movie? And I know, Branson, you're new, so just think about the entire episode, not that you've reviewed.
I'll tell you what, mine, Battlefield Earth. There you go.
Battlefield Earth, that was your worst one?
Yes.
All right.
Sir, I would disagree with you as far as what your
of course you disagree. Battlefield Earth.
No, because there was one that was so bad you refused to show up to do the show with us.
This is
true.
That
was a totally different thing that I felt completely it just crossed some borderlines at it. I just felt like it was mocking God. I don't do stuff that likes to mock God.
I respect that. I respect that answer.
Yeah.
So, John, what was your worst movie?
I have a tie.
You have a tie?
I have a tie.
Is it a bow tie?
Eric discovered dad jokes on Instagram this week, and all I heard was dad jokes during service today. I'm not going to take it from you, sir.
Sounds like a fun service. I wish I was there.
So what is your tie?
It was a tie between Velocipaster, which is the one that Kevin was not present for.
Right.
And then Fatal, I don't even remember what it was called.
Deviation?
Deviation, yeah.
Yeah, that one is pretty bad.
that one, ladies and gentlemen, that comes out here in just a couple weeks on the Bottom Shelf. So, spoiler alert, I guess.
Yeah. Sorry, but I mean, you asked the question, and
I did.
Hey, allow me to elaborate the spirit of dad jokes. I got one for you.
No,
how do Mexicans stay warm?
Oh, this is gonna go south real quick.
They use a chicken fajita.
What?
How do you make a tissue dance?
How?
You blow
put
a little boogie
in it.
Kevin's dying.
We have stepped into my sense of humor.
Branson has been making dad jokes since we were teenagers.
He was part of
I was
dad
just
when we
getting
were
ready.
teenagers.
No, I was not a dad when I was a teenager. Thank you, Kevin.
So, Branson, what's the worst one for you for the Bottom Shelf?
I was going to say Avatar, because my son and I have actually started watching the animated series recently.
Right.
And I appreciated, like, I can't even get through the first 45 minutes of the movie without being bored. And the first episode was wonderful.
Which Avatar?
The first one, the Nickelodeon cartoon.
Oh, The Last Airbender.
Yeah, sorry. You're right. It's not called Avatar. But in light of everything that y'all reviewed, I have to think that Velocipaster is my worst one. That's the one that, like, I'm never going to even bother watching again.
Right. I'm not going to lie. For me, I'm kind of in the same position as John as far as things being tied. For me, the Battlefield Earth was at the top of my list of being the worst movie we've possibly watched. But Fatal Deviation and Velocipaster are probably the two dumpster fires of all dumpster fires.
I'm kind of glad I was out for Fatal Deviation now. It sounds like it was terrible.
Oh.
It was not good.
I can send you some links. You can watch it since now.
No, that's okay.
It's free on YouTube.
I know there's a reason for that.
It has the most awkward adult scene in it that shows absolutely nothing at all. It was
for no reason.
For no reason. The most uncomfortable. The most.
If you're a fanboy of Jean-Claude Van Damme, you have to see this.
I felt like I was peeking into somebody's room.
Like Kevin said, this movie, that movie really was the guy who directed it. Jean-Claude Van Damme was his superhero, and that's why he made it. But speaking of superheroes, let's get into our topic today. of should superhero, quote unquote, be a genre? Now, in the pre-show, we had some conversations, and we're going to have to chop it up just a little bit. The question needs to be asked this: what does the term superhero mean? Before we get into the conversation of should there be a superhero genre. And I bring this up because there's a lot of debate on the internet right now as to whether or not the Batman is good, because some people are going into it going, this isn't a superhero movie. Or they're looking for when they say superhero movie, their mind is MCU. So let's rewind the clock a little bit. Let's talk about that superhero movie. What is a superhero? How do we define that term? So what do you guys think? I'm throwing this out there, open conversation for you guys.
Has anyone watched Smallville, that song? Somebody save me. There you go, superhero.
Now, Preston, you had some interesting thoughts earlier.
Yeah. See, for me, the term superhero got its start in comics. So when I think of the word superhero, I think of a comic book. Mm-hmm. In my mind, a superhero is someone who has something extraordinary about them, whether it is a skill or a superpower or a weapon or something that puts them above the normal public populace, you know, and they in turn take that thing that makes them special and deliberately use it for the betterment of the society around them. And that's a very, very broad thing because there are a lot of different things that could make you special.
Right.
There are a lot of different ways that the person could choose to make society around them better that may or may not be what everyone else thinks is better.
Right.
I want to throw in that just for my own personal enjoyment, I like my superheroes to have costumes and alter egos, but that's just a personal preference. I wouldn't say that's a requirement. Mm-hmm. So I would say a superhero is someone who is extraordinary in some way and deliberately uses that to be the hero, to save people.
So before we continue on with that, though, let me ask you this. By that definition, because I heard people say otherwise, is Zorro a superhero?
Yes.
Okay. Across the board, we say Zorro is a superhero.
Yes.
Well, what does John say? I never ever heard him say anything.
I have thoughts.
You don't like Zorro? You don't want Zorro?
Did I say I didn't like Zorro?
No, I'm asking you. Do you like Zorro?
I believe that there's a difference between a superhero and a vigilante.
Okay, the answer is with Zorro. Do you like Zorro?
Do I like Zorro? Yes, I liked Zorro. I grew up watching Zorro on the Family Channel.
So okay, so John,
the best Zorro, by the way.
Correct,
John,
sir.
for you, is Zorro a superhero? You said there's a difference between a superhero and a vigilante. So how does Zorro fall in?
He's a vigilante.
Okay, but what separates him from Batman?
Resources.
Zorro had resources.
And to be perfectly honest, I'm not entirely convinced that Batman is a superhero either, to be,
Oh, then that's an interesting conversation.
So do you fall in the camp that a superhero specifically has to have a superpower?
No.
So a normal person can't be a superhero?
Correct.
Okay, so Iron Man isn't a superhero.
No, he is, because he was able to buy superpowers or create them for himself.
Kind of like Batman and Zorro. Especially watching the Family Channel Zorro, because he has a cave where he runs all kinds of science experiments.
That doesn't mean anything.
He has resources.
I'll put you like this. Joseph Mengele had a cave where he did science experiments. Was he a superhero?
I'm sure that's a wonderful point. I don't know who Joseph Mengele is.
Womp, womp, womp.
Well, you should do some World War II history, brother.
Okay.
So let's lay it out. Here we have Zorro, Don Diego Vega, right? That's the guy's alter ego. Everybody knows he is a well-to-do Spanish American living in California before California officially became the States.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes on the identity of the Fox, Zorro, to fight crime and to fight tyranny and to help the people who are under oppression from both from Spanish leaders and from their own people. And he is exceptional at sword fighting, like the legendary at sword fighting. How is he separate from Batman?
He's not, because the question that it comes down to is, can anybody do this? Is this person genuinely above the populace, or is this just a matter of somebody has enough resources to make something more of themselves? Like, for instance, if you gave the same resources to anybody else, could anybody do this, or is this? Because you have to break the word superhero down. Like I'm a medical coder. Okay. Mm-hmm. I have to break down medical terminology all day long in order to determine what specifically a doctor is doing.
Right.
And so you break down the word superhero, super is an implication of being superior, that basically not everybody can do what this individual does. Mm-hmm. And if you're doing something that with given enough resources or time and effort that somebody else could be doing, mm-hmm. you're not a superhero. You're just a skilled individual who's a vigilante.
Okay.
So, the more we talk about it, the more I start thinking about it. I would say, no, Zorro's probably not a superhero. Batman's probably not a superhero. And by my own definition, then I would say Iron Man is also not a superhero.
I was about to ask you, would we consider Iron Man or Green Arrow?
I don't know enough about the Green Arrow mythos to be able to speak to that.
I mean, he's basically Robin Hood. What about Green Lantern? The only thing that separates him is that he has been given the resource of a ring.
But with that it's the ring that makes him the superhero.
Yeah, and the ring, not anyone can pick up the ring. The ring has to choose its bearer. So there's something about Hal Jordan that sets him apart from the rest of the populace. So that one,
it's the extreme amount of will that he has, which is if you could suggest that a will is something that you can grow yourself.
While that may be true, the concept of the story is that Hal is specific. Like when Abin Sur died, the ring could have picked anybody.
Sure.
And it picked Hal Jordan.
Mm-hmm. But
so
at the same time,
Green Arrow,
Hal
I would
stole
agree.
people's rings, so it's not solely on the ring's choosing. You can take somebody's ring.
Yeah, but that's not within the framework of how. No, I'm not a Green Lantern super fan.
There was a story arc where Hal Jordan goes across the universe, stealing other lanterns' rings out of grief because his hometown was destroyed. It was Emerald something, and basically he creates his own. Using the rings recreates his town.
And he's
It
able
was right
to
before he
control
died
the
and
power.
became the spirit.
And he's able to control the rings and use them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well that kind of. But then again, it's DC. They don't always get their details straight.
Okay, so how are we defining superhero? If we're saying that Batman is not a superhero, John, then who would be a superhero?
I would say it would be somebody who has a given ability that cannot be reproduced with enough time, effort, or resources.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, Superman would be a superhero. Wolverine,
basically.
Wolverine would be a superhero.
Yeah.
Thor is a superhero.
Is he though? In the original comics, Thor was an entity, but anybody can become Thor if they had the thing and they called its name.
Thor himself is the superhero.
Mm-hmm.
The person whose body they use that he used in the original comics, no, they would not be. But Thor himself would be.
I can see that, yeah.
You know, Aquaman, incredibly lame superhero.
That's just your opinion.
Given the right environment, he actually could be really, really good.
Yeah, I saw this bit on Family Guy one time where they're talking about they were talking about Aquaman. They showed this lady getting mugged on the beach. He's like, hey, you stop that. How about you come in the water and then try to do that? Then you'll see what's up.
I need you to read Jeff Johns' run on Aquaman during the New 52 days. That will change your mind about Aquaman, because he went in that with the whole mindset of, because he knew the stigma. He's like, I'm going to make Aquaman cool. And he did.
I can second that, because that's exactly what changed my mind. I read the Justice League run, and Aquaman kicked butt in that series. I was like, okay, I'm not going to say Aquaman's lame anymore. That's
I can guarantee you, if Ben Avery ever listens to this episode and he hears me, he's probably going to be shouting at the iPod.
I'm going to send it to him specifically just so he can. All right, Kevin, you've been quiet. What is a superhero, man?
Okay. A superhero to me is anyone that has that mythological, fictional character that someone would look up to, that they actually step up in a superior role that someone themselves would not be able to obtain or are capable of doing so. So I can look at this as someone who is able to physically and mentally, spiritually, whatever, step up towards the gameplay, which I know I do not have the capacity to do so. So I personally will see Zorro and Batman as a superhero. They are heroic. They superior in their heroic way of doing it by themselves, or mostly by themselves, in a way to obtain that I can never do it myself. I've seen this too, like when I read comics, and one of my favorites is Zorro. That's why when you said Zorro, I got super excited, because that was one of my earliest ones, amongst the first one, vigilante / superhero, whatever, that you hear on radio, because it was the first.
Yeah.
It was also the first on television. When we talk now, going back to the original question, is superhero films the genre? I think about what are the pop culture type of topics of several decades. We can start off early with, when we talk about in these films, we talk about with silent films. We have westerns, we have science fiction, we have drama, mystery, horror, but we all know that horror wasn't exactly an actual genre. They just said suspense. Horror was not really a thing, even after a little bit after Universal Monsters, that it was actually creating a genre. It was just suspense and mystery.
See, I didn't know that.
Kevin, let me ask you this. If you consider Zorro to be a superhero, do you consider the Punisher to be a superhero?
Yeah. Anyways, superhero, vigilante, anti-hero. It's all in that same mixture of genre of someone who masks themselves, who does something completely different that other people will not do on their own. Okay, but I don't want to talk about just a particular character. I just want to talk about this as a collective, because that's what we're doing, right? As a collective.
Right.
Okay.
Listen
when
to you
we talk
being
about
all
this
on
and
point.
westerns, westerns took off because we got to think about what time frame was the westerns made. This was not too far after the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the West was extremely popular. People still had an eye on science fiction. They had we had some great ones like Metropolis, and we have like H.G. Wells' Things to Come and so forth. War of the Worlds, again, silent films, but it was just like unknown. No one really cared until when we start hitting that space age. Then science fiction just shot up like crazy.
Right.
And everyone had a set mindset of what science fiction was until George Lucas came to the picture and he decided to do the mixing of the East and the West. And that changed science fiction face. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a completely different way. You get the same way with samurai films. When you watch Japanese samurai films, how much they changed when it was Akio Kurosawa, when he decides I'm going to make a more Western approach to my samurai movies.
Mm-hmm.
This made a lot of Japanese and a lot of Asian culture livid. It's like, how dare you change something that is traditional? So we have the same thing with the superhero. Like there was always something that was traditional, and we always have these little elements throughout film studios that changes the game of certain things. We see that definitely with Marvel.
Right.
We see that how, you always had the Shadow, you always had the Phantom, you always had Zorro and all these others until they started acquiring powers and so forth, changing a face of how a superhero is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They're still superheroes, but they change, whether if they're good or bad. Some of the greatest stories, I think, for that type of, it would be like Watchmen. Love reading Watchmen. Because anybody can be a superhero, but doesn't mean they should be one, because you can see what happens when they step up to the plate, they get some devastating results.
Right.
As again, talking about the graphic novel and everything, not talking about, I want to talk about as a movie. So as a collective of movies and watching them, it separates themselves amongst others. Right. There's people who I know personally that's like my age or younger that hates this type of style, that hates this genre, or I call it a genre. They hate it. It's like, what real person in real life would actually put a costume and go fight people unless they're an idiot? I'm like, dude, it's just fictional. No, it's stupid. And I was like, you're like the only 28-year-old person I know that would say that.
Because the rest of us are fantasizing about doing it.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'll get to that part later.
Yeah, I'll say this about kind of what you talk about. There is a cultural shift. There is a cultural mindset of what we're looking at. There are individuals who they come from an era where if it came from a comic book, it's automatically for children, and we should ignore it. Period.
Yeah.
There are outliners throughout the history that are older individuals who they're like, no, that's not true. That's not how it should be. My father-in-law is one of them. He is years old, and dude is a big old geek. He's a big nerd, and he loves comic books, and he loves all these things. In fact, he's part of a group of guys who are going through basically writing the history of comics, but like creating this shared universe between going from like all the way back to Tarzan and Sherlock Holmes, connecting them to Batman and all these other guys.
Oh, wow.
And so like deep into it, right?
Yeah.
So, but there is a generational shift. And I will say this, there are some, we were talking about this pre-show about the Bridger generation between Gen X and the millennials. There is a mentality that started with Gen X and was in the millennials, where it was, let's hate things because we want to be edgy and cool, or let's say things just because we want to be edgy and cool, but forget the fact that we're making a joke.
Yeah, that's true.
And we take it too far. And I feel like some of that is what we see a little bit happening with certain things like that. So let's break it down though. We've kind of laid out on the floor what we think about the concept of what a superhero is, but what to talk about if it should be a genre, and whether or not it should be played out within movies. For me personally, because it's my show, I'm going to put it out there first. But for me personally, the way I look at it, I don't think we should have a label of superhero movie, because the populace that goes superhero movie, let's go MCU, which, like it or not, MCU movies are starting to blur together, or they were starting to blur together, and there was no distinction in style. It was MCU. it is that is the thing that it is. Whereas instead of there being distinct story telling, distinct story styles and genres, it was the MCU way. And people go, this is a superhero movie. I would rather go either no genre or have comic book genre with subclasses, because I think that that's a better description of certain things.
See, that's what I would say is comic book genre / whatever class, because again, you got to think about the history of films when you watch them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people who I know I don't talk about enough, or I only talk about on my channel, I should. It's like Westerns. I absolutely love Westerns, not just because I just, it's just something I very much enjoy. I watch it with my father all the time. And then, when you have Westerns, it's always like cowboys and Indians shooting each other, or it's like cowboys on cowboys. There's always something fighting over. There's always that. You already know what's going to happen. And it happens again and again and again. And then there was a movie called High Noon.
Yeah.
Completely changed people's mindsets. And they were fighting. And
really?
a lot of people hated the movie. They're like, this is not a Western. Just because they're in the West does not make it a Western. There's no shootouts until the very end. It's like completely dramatic and is extremely suspenseful. They're like, why would you call this a Western? I'm pretty sure like the same thing why people would say this, why you call it Batman a superhero. This isn't a superhero. There's no like powers. There's nothing like the other Batman movies we've seen. There's nothing that we've seen with Marvel. We've been so saturated in our mindsets to see what makes a superhero film. It changes a way of viewing it. And now, it's John, like, okay. I'm sorry. And this also happened again, like I said, with horror, because I love monster horror films. And they did that until they started going a little further and further. Bride of Frankenstein really set Universal Pictures on edge, because they were like, hey, what is this? And then when Todd Browning, after Dracula, he made Freaks, that's when they fired him. It was like, you know what? No more movies from you. You better take a couple steps back and just make the regular war pictures that everybody loves and adores.
Oh wow.
It really changed a lot for him, because studio changed the ending of Freaks. They were like, no. The Freaks has to be. I'm sorry, this is going to spoil it for those who haven't seen it. The Freaks are bad. And Todd Browning's like, no, just because they're little, just because they're weird, just because they're odd doesn't make them bad. But studio didn't like it, because that mindset at the time, anything that looked different from you, anything that was opposite from you, is obviously bad. And I could see that with other films that are made, how you get so much studio control of how things happen. So studio control does have a lot in genres of how we see things. But again, with the superhero, this is still a superhero film, but it's in a different class, and we're going to start seeing classes actually starting to become a bit more a lot different, where people can actually go inside a film and not think every film I have to watch like this kind genre have to be with my kid teenager.
Right.
I mean, they already saw that with Watchmen. They already saw that with a couple others that was made, like Darkman, when Sam again, early, very dark, very violent, but very cheesy too.
Sure.
See, you already see this in comics like that, though. You can read comics, and you can read a superhero story that has hard-boiled noir-style elements, or you could read a superhero story that has psychological thriller elements, or you could read a superhero story that is more of an urban fantasy thing. You see that in the comics already.
We just have to presume these movie watchers are not comic book readers, unfortunately.
Right.
Well,
right. So,
I'm sorry. Keep going.
I just that's why I think I wouldn't call superhero a genre, because there are so many different types of stories you could tell with the superhero as the main character. You could have these movies where a hero wrestles with himself and his own inner demons. He's a superhero, but he's dealing. It's like a psychological thriller. Or you can have it where he's solving a mystery, so it's a detective story. Or you could have it where he just shows up and punches a bunch of people, so it's an action thriller. Put him in World War II, where he's going behind enemy lines. Now it's a war movie. Make him part of a secret society or a secret agent thing. Now it's a spy thriller. Just because he puts on a mask and has a code name doesn't mean that it has to be the same type of story. So I would argue superhero shouldn't be its own genre. it should be a character description. It's like we don't call a genre of movies films where the villain is a rich bad guy, like where the bad guy's the billionaire. I mean, there are hundreds of different types of movies where the bad guy is the billionaire. We don't throw them all into the same class. It's just
don't talk about Jeff Bezos that way.
Oh my gosh.
So I would say that a superhero is more descriptive of a character than a genre of an entire movie.
So
John, you shook your head pretty hard
yeah.
when I brought the idea of having a comic book genre rather than a superhero genre. What's up with that? You got whiplash over there? You okay?
No, there's. Okay, I'm
Just
no
breathe,
minarch.
John. Just breathe, John.
Kevin, I will break you. There. So, as the resident music geek, I can tell you that there is an inherent danger in overclassifying anything, because I have seen it in the music realm. You start subdividing into subgenres and tertiary genres until eventually nothing has definition anymore. If you can tell me the difference between hate metal and war metal, I'll give you $1 because I can't hear it. And then to say superhero movies as a genre, the first thing my mind went to, being the music geek, is that's like calling Viking metal a genre. And there's some people that call Viking metal a genre just because it's a genre of metal that sings about Vikings.
Genre.
It is not.
Viking metal is.
No, it's not. Viking metal is just metal where they sing about Vikings. Content does not define specific lyrical content does not define a genre. That just defines lyrical content. That's like saying satanic metal is a genre. It's not, because I can find satanic metal underneath standard heavy metal, black metal, death metal, grindcore. I can, it's topical. Metal? What? No, Christian. No, and I'm going to be the first person to tell you that Christian music should not be defined by its content. It should be on the shelves listed with anything else. They don't do that with any other type of medium. You don't have Buddhist metal, you don't have Muslim metal.
How many times have you just traveled outside the States?
What's that? But what I'm saying, you go into Hastings, or if you went into Hastings, I'm sorry, I just made a bunch of people sad.
Forget Hastings. Hastings sucked.
You shut your dirty mouth.
Where's that ejection button?
Wrong show.
It's next to the taco machine. But you go to any kind of record store, there's always a Christian section.
Yeah.
But they don't define anything else by religious or topical content outside of that.
But isn't that?
I'm sorry.
I know I'm getting on a high horse away from the central topic here.
Yeah.
But the point is you shouldn't define genre by specific content, such as this movie contains superheroes or this book contains Christian themes. But we shouldn't classify an art medium based off of content, because it doesn't make sense. It's basically like saying that this is a superhero movie is like saying this is a movie that has strippers in it. So it's a stripper movie. Is that a content? And I just pulled that off the top of my head. I don't let's not get Freudian with it here. Or this is a fishing movie. If you want to talk about, a river runs through it, or, this is a boating movie. And it gets ridiculous if you go based off of content rather than based off of theme. Superhero movies, specifically the MCU, they would be categorized as action sci-fi. Yes, they have superheroes in it, but that's a medium to convey a story. It is not a genre in and of itself.
Let's pass the plate. I think the sermon is over. I've said we've settled this. John has spoken.
I want you to go to the multi-billionaire company, Disney.com, go to their movie site, and then tell them that they need to change where it says superhero vigilante section, and tell them how wrong they are by multi-billion dollars who incorporates this in people's minds.
So cool. So what you're saying is multi-billion dollar companies dictate what truth is.
Yeah, the power of of the dollar bill. Okay.
Well, see, this is the problem. This is legitimately the issue that we're running into, is the conversation of what is what. Because I've heard there several groups, people are complaining about the Batman because it's not a superhero movie. Well, what's a superhero movie? What are we classifying? The fact that it has superheroes in it or not?
It's not.
I heard one person bring up a great fact. Depending on what your genre of what you consider to be a superhero, some people consider the Fast and Furious movies superhero movies because they're heroes doing super things. Even by some of the own definitions we threw out here, these guys doing extraordinary things that nobody else would be able to do outside of maybe some resources. They're doing stuff that nobody else is willing to do. Bryson, are you willing to strap a rocket to the butt of your car and go into space?
I'm having a moment. Give me a second.
You like that, Kevin? Does that taste good? He's using your own definition against you.
No, he's not.
Is that tasty? Someone stepping up to do something that you couldn't do.
They're stepping up by gathering everyone they got from the hood, and it was like, here's a couple $100. Let's do the dumbest thing we could think of possible. It's like, we're going to jail. We're going to jail anyways.
Okay, but no, I had a minute to think about
it. You can't change your standardization just because you don't
change
like
it because what I said earlier. Not only do they step up, they also change. They also have a way of when people look up to them. They change their costume. They change. It's almost like they're becoming a new identity.
But they are becoming a new identity. They created a whole legion of followers that have now souped up their race rockets to be race cars.
There's some American muscle in those shows, man. What are you talking about? Race rockets?
There's some nice American muscle vehicles in it, but doesn't. It will make a lot of car people very angry. I've noticed watching it with car people, and I work on cars and seeing that's not even funny. It's bad.
But see, here's the thing. If you call that a superhero movie, I feel myself getting angry because I think, no, that's not a superhero. But I think that illustrates the point that you should not have superhero as a genre, because Fast and the Furious are action thriller movies. You can have an action thriller movie where the main character is a superhero.
And I would go as far as to say that this conversation, it just demonstrates the fact that you can't have superhero movie as a genre because the definition of superhero is completely subjective to the viewer.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah, like I heard your discussion about how you thought that a superhero means there has to be something super that cannot be duplicated.
By time, resources, or effort.
Right. And I understand that definition. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can completely wrap my head around why a person would think that way. Mm-hmm. It's just, in my experience, when people use that definition, I can always find an example where they go, oh, well, that technically fits, but I still think that person's a superhero. And it's usually Iron Man.
Right.
Usually Iron Man, they're like, there's nothing super about him.
Well, and here's the thing, though. When you bring Iron Man into the mix, it just points out, when people cringe and say, but I still consider him, it's just pointing out that people will change their definition of what they think superhero is based off of what they like, because they find the idea of superhero being a greater tribute than just saying empowered vigilante.
Yeah. It's okay to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know not many people are going to agree with me, and that's perfectly fine. I understand that. Most people don't agree with my taste in movies. Most people think I suck in life. I'm cool with that. Whatever.
But I love you, Kevin.
I know. I love you too.
Do you need a hug, Kevin?
No, but here's something I'll have to say. I have to separate myself from a greater portion of population of when they're looking at something and how we're viewing it. Okay. Now, if I could tell everybody under the sun, I think I've talked to you briefly about this. Eraserhead is a movie.
Yeah.
David Lynch. I consider that a freakish horror film. Mm-hmm. There is people who I know who would die a death, unknown to mankind, saying no, it's a comedy. I'm like, there was nothing comedy about. I mean, it has comedic elements, but it's not comedy.
It's like Dark
And
Star.
then there's someone else. There's like this whole collective of college students and professors who know Superior more than God himself, and say, no, it's a very dramatic film of life and death and rebirth. I'm like, dude, what the flip? So I just like had to look at a greater portion. Like, you know what? It's a mixture genre. Whenever I see it put into a category, it's always put it as horror suspense. And I think that's quite funny how they would put that under horror suspense when there's so much debate with so many different people what kind of genre it is. Even David Lynch won't tell you what genre it is, because that's just the way he is.
Now, some of it boils down to the fact that we, by nature, want to classify things and put them in a space. And we like to do it by spaces that we are comfortable with. And this has been a good thing, and it has been a horrifically terrible thing throughout human history at the same time.
Yes.
Within the genre realm, Kevin, because you and I both worked for video stores,
Yes.
how much of your personal classification of movies is based on your experience working at a movie rental store? Because I can tell you right now, Hollywood Video has, because I worked for Hollywood Video for so long, I to this day classify. If you go to when I finally get my movie collection cleaned back up again, but when I moved to this house, we put our movies up. I classified my movies alphabetically and by genre and put them up on my wall.
Same. Yeah. Same.
How much of, but I'm looking at them, I'm going, all right, this would be I'm going by the standards that were given to me through Hollywood Video. This is how I laid it out. Is that what happens to you?
Yes, there is certain films I actually change on my own, certain ones, but you guys can get mad or whatever, but I have a superhero section because I know there's two friends of mine who likes those types of films, and if there's something a little bit different, like when I put what's the movie Darkman right there, they would have never watched it if it wasn't in that classification. See, now I know when we worked Hollywood Video, that was considered action adventure.
Right.
In fact, Iron Man was action adventure. Iron Man 2, 3 was action adventure. And then when Marvel started pumping them out before, I guess when they Hastings just screwed Hollywood Video over and everyone else over, then they started doing a separate section, the superhero section, the comic book. It was the comic book movie section. That's what it was.
See, that's the thing. This is what I'm advocating for.
And Movie Stop did the same thing.
Yeah, this is what I'm advocating for. We need to stop saying superhero genre when we're talking to people about these, because again, I'm with you, man. Like I gravitate to stories about quote unquote superheroes, but within them are genres. What I'm advocating for is that when we present movies to people, we stop calling them superhero movies and we go comic book movies, because within that, there's a vast array of certain things that can take place within the comic book world. There is a universal mindset of what a superhero movie is. And normally, like, I know people who would not like Venom, not because there wasn't Spider-Man in it, like some people, but because
stop looking at me.
but because Venom himself is an anti-hero. And there are people who are like, I don't like that.
So this would be like an A for effort for trying, but let's use a different terminology. Don't say superhero, use comic book.
Okay, I'm about to ruin that philosophy for you.
Okay, while are you trying to ruin your own life? Let me just finish one last thing, okay? Darn it, John. I was I had a thought in my mind.
Yeah, and if it was important, you'd still remember it.
Actually,
so
thank you for bringing it back. So I believe what will be the next wave of what people may argue about what's a genre or not will be video game movies, because it's starting with the rise. You can see it. It's been going back and forth, like they're really trying. And Uncharted, recent film, has been doing more successful than they actually presumed, because they were just like on that 50-50, like, is it going to work? Is it not going to work?
It shouldn't work.
A lot of people do not like it, and I can understand that.
Bad casting.
However, it's doing successful in the box office, which is actually saying like, hey, we might be getting a comeback for video game movies. Maybe we could start making a couple more that might be successful, because we're running. The studio, they shouldn't, but they're running out of ideas for comic book movies, which is sad, because they shouldn't when there's so much of a vast amount of stories to present on film.
But I just want a decent Shadow and a decent Phantom movie.
Yeah, I mean, look what happened with Sonic the Hedgehog. they listened to the fans. The people fought. They got their way, and they saw, hey, this is what happens when we listen to our fans. So they're trying again with what Super Mario Brothers, this time as an animated film, because that's what everybody wanted to see Super Mario's as, not live action. They want to see it animated. So we'll see what happens at December when that happens.
Kevin, I love how you said that you had just one small thing to say before I made my comment, and then you just completely squashed my comment by changing.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Go ahead, mate. Go ahead, mate. I'm sorry.
What I was going to say, now I have to rewind it back about 5 minutes over Kevin preaching from the pulpit here, is to shoot a hole in this comic book genre is, okay, you call it a comic book genre, but, you know, Tales from the Crypt started as a comic book.
Yes, it did.
It'd be a comic book movie.
It was That's a comic book movie. Okay, well then you would have to say, because that inspired other movies like Creep Show and Tales from the Dark Side and things like that. Would we have to call that a comic book movie? Because
were those derived from a comic book?
No, but they were inspired by Tales from the Crypt. The old.
Well, that's the thing. There's so many things that are inspired by other things. Bryce and I were talking beforehand. Joel Schuster, was it Schuster or Siegel?
Siegel was the writer.
Siegel was inspired by a mugging to create Superman.
Yeah,
right.
So is Superman is that a mugging story?
Well, but that's just it. The definition will blur just based off of, okay, well, this was based off of a comic book, so we'd say Tales from the Crypt is a comic book movie. But then you got Tales from the Dark Side or Creep Show, which is not based off a comic book, that will go under vignette horror, despite the fact that they're basically the same movie.
But again, this is where we get into the conversation of subgenres. There is, whether we like it or not, there is a level of subgenres that we look at. Not all action movies are the same. You can have an action comedy. You can have a action suspense thriller. Mm-hmm. There is a level of blurring of lines, and I think the lesson of the day is there's no clear answer on this. There will always be a blurring of certain things. The strength of the Batman, in my opinion, is that if you remove the Batman, you have a really intense detective story that's taking place. Mm-hmm. There's a few elements that are very the Batman involved in it, but for the most part, you remove it, you have a really intense, great noir detective story. Which can I point at the fact that I love the fact that there are so many people who now have said noir for the very first time ever in their lives or even heard of it because of this. I've heard more people go, "It's a noir." You've never said noir in your life, man. Anyways, but
I could tell them, watch Call Northside 777. What's that? It's like that's what I thought.
Maltese
Kevin's like, let me show you. I will show you a world of bleak and darkness. All right. So, anyways, but there is a level of classification that takes place throughout everything we look at. My issue, and I've said this several times already, is that we have a fundamental problem with the fact that when people say superhero movie, we think specifically, and it's due to saturation, I get it, in success. And I'm not knocking it. I enjoy the MCU.
Yeah.
I really do. But there is now a mindset, oh, it should be this.
Right.
I know people who are angry at the Batman because they feel like they can't take their 5-year-old to see the 3-hour crime movie about a different universe's version of the Zodiac Killer.
Or they're upset because they can't take their 5-year-old mind to it as well.
That too.
Well,
so
speaking as a father, I can understand that frustration. As a matter of fact, B's Views and Reviews started because my sons like comic books, but I can't let them walk around unattended in a comic book shop. I have to say there are certain titles we're just not going to even consider looking at. So I can understand the frustration of Batman being attached to something that I can't take my sons to see.
Right.
I had the same issue when they had that fan-made Power Rangers movie.
That was rough.
I wanted so bad for that to be good, and it was terrible. It
fan-made Power Rangers.
Yeah, there was a really well done fan-made Power Rangers short. It was like a teaser movie.
It was like an hour long.
That was extremely R-rated, like topless women R-rated.
Okay.
And it was terrible. It basically asked a really good question about what happens when you take teenagers, weaponize them, and send them to fight an intergalactic war. So the idea behind the story, I think, was valid. They just chose a really, really dark way to do it. And the reality is Power Rangers started as a children's property. And so as a parent, I understand the frustration of this is something that my kids are into, but because of the content, I can't take them to it.
Right.
My response to that is welcome to parenthood.
Thank you.
Your kids are going to like things that they cannot go see. That's the reality of it.
Branson, I'm going to cut this one clip and put this out there. Welcome to Parent. That might be the title of the freaking episode.
Welcome to Parenthood.
Kevin, what are you going to say, bud?
There was something you said earlier about noir, how people are starting to use it. And I was like, see, there's a power of marketing technique when somebody can actually, they might be open to now other actually realistic noir films, neo-noir, which I would say is like the Blade Runner and everything else. Even that is a genre that people argue about. It's like, why are we putting a section for noir films? I mean, what is noir and so forth? It's a French expression that was created by a think of the word. What we are, movie critics, a critic. He wrote down and he created a word, noir. This is back in the 60s, 70s, and they're like, that's the word for this genre because we couldn't place it. It's not drama. It's not quite mystery, but it's something in the mixture of all kinds of things. And that's when
for me, that was Sin City. Sin City is what got me interested.
Yeah, that would be like a noir / neo-noir, where it's like more of a newer age type style and so forth. Yeah. And again, power of marketing, because we want, even though we could all agree or disagree what it is, it's the marketing technique of presenting it, of what a larger audience will say. But I could see under caution for, like, as you were saying, Branson, for your B's reviews of like, okay, we've already have accepted that most people believe that superheroes is for like everyone. You could bring the kiddos, you could bring everybody. But should you on certain of these? Because despite the ratings, they're like, it's R rating, it's just got more blood and violence, right? It's like, yeah, it's got a little bit more than blood and violence in that. It's got a little bit more than just like a couple.
Well, that's why you pay attention to the ratings and the content, and then decide if it's for your kids. Not, oh, it's Batman, it must be okay.
It's almost like parenting takes a little bit of effort.
And that's the reason why, like, when you see my videos, and I put it in the end card, because people's like, I like PG-13, but I'm not watching a PG-13 with sexuality and nudity, because of certain personal reasons, and I respect that. I'm not watching a PG-13 if it has, like, I don't know, 35 GDs, because, GD is not considered a strong language, apparently. And I was like, I don't want to see a movie and listen to my lore get cursed that many times. And that's why I make those title cards at the end, because of me growing up with my parents and so forth. I was like, this movie said it was PG. What did they consider PG back in 1982? Anything.
Right.
Well, guys, we are 50 minutes into the episode.
Wait, John has something to say. John looks like he's holding his breath on something.
Did you have something you want to say, John? No, he's shaking his head. So, hey, we're going to do a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back. We're going to do kind of an exercise of, we're going to list off a couple of popular characters, and we'll talk about the
I'm too fat to exercise.
We're going to try to see what the type of genres we'd like to see these characters in. It may be a longer break than usual because Kevin's got to get an inhaler. All right, guys, we'll see you on the flip side of this break.
All right, so what we like to do here on the Retro Rewind podcast is at the end of our like section, we do our classic makers, the things that we loved most about the movies we cover. I'll start us off, then we'll go to Paul. The thing I loved most about The Princess Bride was probably the dueling sword scene between Inigo and Dread Pirate Roberts, Wesley. That's just such a great sword fight scene. I love that they use the actual fencing, like, terminology and techniques. And the only little quibble I have is when Wesley does his spinning, his
best sword fight scene ever.
Yes, but when Wesley does his gymnastics high bar routine and lands, you can see the pillow bag or the mat puff up with the dust. You see the outline of it, so it's not perfect. But that is my favorite part about Princess Bride. How about you, Paul?
My favorite thing about The Princess Bride is the movie The Princess Bride. I just love that it exists. I love the story. I love the characters. I love the cast. I love the interaction. It's just it's one of my top favorite films of all time. So I like the whole movie.
Paul, how can that be your top movie when, as good as that sword fight is between Wesley and Inigo, I feel like the one between Inigo and the Six Finger Man should be even more epic, and it's sort of like isn't as good.
It's not better. No, that it will be less because Wesley's better, so therefore that fight would be better.
All right, fine. You know what? All right, well, I guess, but now we do have to talk about. Oh, darn it! I always do this. How come I cannot remember one more thing I liked? Comm Talk by Geek Devotions. You're listening to it right now.
Okay, and we're back from the break. I want to encourage you guys to make sure you check out those individuals because we love them, care about them, and there are links in the description down below for you guys to be able to go straight to their page and check out their podcasts.
Yeah,
I guess I should do that.
That thing was my favorite of whatever it was.
Yes, it was. All right, so hey guys, we're going to get into an interesting conversation of looking at some popular characters and asking ourselves what genre, how would we want to place them, and what kind of films. And really interesting, during the commercial break, John brought up a great point about the whole, like, we have this innate aspect of how we want to classify things. And he goes, dude, that goes all the way back to biblical times and the fact that our first job as men was to classify animals, put things in a spot, go, okay, this belongs here, this belongs there, and moving that forward. So we're going to kind of put a little bit of exercise to that. Coming off the ark, God's put us in the garden of geekdoms, and now we're going to classify all these animals that we see.
I want to know who was the original sinner that put us on the ark in the first place, because I want to punch that guy in the mouth.
Adam bit the apple. Cain smacked the...
No, he's talking about on the spaceship, bro.
Oh, on the spaceship.
I was like, Adam ate an apple.
I don't know. All right. This is going downhill real quick. All right, so because it's popular conversation right now, and I've brought it up several times. Batman. What kind of film would you guys like to see Batman displayed in?
If we're excluding superhero genre, is that what you're saying?
If we're excluding the conversation of a superhero genre.
Okay.
Because superhero is not a genre. I've already explained this, Kevin.
I've already explained it is, but hey.
I would go full out either crime or murder mystery, because Batman is at his best when he's solving a mystery.
Now, do you have an example of something you would like to see? Like an example of a movie that does that well?
Of a movie? No, but it was a conversation that you and I had about an idea for a story you had.
Yes.
Where you have a guy sitting at a table with file folders spread out in front of him, and he's looking over photos, he's looking over evidence, and the whole story is him solving this crime, solving this murder or whatever. And then at the very end, he finally figures it out. He knows who the person is. He knows who the perpetrator is. He stands up and puts on his bat suit. Right. So you don't even know it's Batman until the very end.
Yes.
And so I don't know that a movie has actually done that, but if they could have a movie, they touched on it a little bit in The Dark Knight, where he talks about, I got to get here and get my evidence before the police ruin the crime scene. Mm-hmm. So they touch on that a little bit, but anything where Batman is the detective and not just a rich dude who knows kung fu or karate or whatever.
My question is, do you know of a great crime detective movie that not necessarily Batman related that could do it? I think Kevin has an example.
Yes, Kevin has. He's having a seizure. We should let him.
Oh yeah,
The Asphalt Jungle.
Say the movie again.
The Asphalt Jungle, directed by John Huston. Both these movies are directed by John Huston, and the other one is The Mountainese Falcon with Humphrey Bogart.
Mountainese Falcon, yes, that was a good one.
Yeah. Okay,
I like it. Don't wear the costumes, but yeah.
John, how about you, man? What would you like to see Batman in?
I'm going to say a genre that most people here in the U.S. aren't super familiar with, but it's very closely related to what Branson was saying. I would like to see Batman in a giallo film. it's kind of murder mystery mixed with slasher.
Oh wow!
Like
okay,
the closest thing to a giallo film that we would have like in the U.S. would be like, I don't know if anybody out there has seen the movie Seven.
Yeah,
a David Fincher film. Yeah.
But that's very giallo-esque. If you want to talk giallo, like one of the first movies that comes to mind would be Suspiria.
Really? Not the bird with the
what
crystal
about that
plumage?
movie with what about that movie with Angelina Jolie and Denzel Washington where he's the paraplegic?
Oh, you're talking about The Bone Collector?
The Bone Collector, yes.
Yeah,
that movie, I think you could easily turn that into a Batman movie and it would be really good.
That's very giallo-esque as well.
You gotta presume that movie's good though.
You haven't seen The Bone Collector, dude?
Yeah, it's a load of crap.
Wow, dude.
Right.
Or Kiss the Girls. That would be another good Batman movie.
Yeah.
I've
never seen it,
one.
but I've heard good things about it.
Haven't seen that one.
Yeah. All right, Kevin, what about you, man? How would you like to see Bat?
I used to see Batman the way he was presented in this film, and I loved it.
Yeah. I would say the same thing. Like, I really enjoyed this.
I'm just trying to think of different ways because I've always wanted a detective Batman movie because he is the world's greatest detective. And I'm like, yes, he's a detective in this movie. What?
Let me caution you. I haven't seen it yet, so don't give away too much.
I didn't give away. I mean, I think that
no
was
spoilers whatsoever. But it is like this really is the more of a detective story. I would like to see more street level stuff than what we saw. There's a series of Chinese films called Infernal Affairs.
Yeah,
where a cop has to go under
Affairs. Infernal Affairs.
Infernal Affairs.
Okay, I'm thinking something different.
But it's about a cop who has to go undercover in a kind of a Chinese mob situation. At the same time, there's a sub story about a Chinese mobster who has to go undercover within the cops, and it goes back and forth. There's a lot of street level conversation takes place. I would love to see some of the stuff that takes place in that.
So
Batman
basically,
story
The Departed, except Chinese.
Yeah, that's Eternal Affairs.
No, Infernal Affairs.
But you said it's a television show, right? Not movie.
No, it's a movie.
Yeah, Eternal Affairs.
No, Infernal.
It really is. Okay. I'm thinking of another movie I have up here. I mean, that and Massacre Gun, the Japanese movie.
I was about to say that what you're describing totally sounds like The Departed.
Yeah, I mean that's what The Departed is based on.
Yeah, interesting. I've not seen that. Well, this is the 3-part series, so it stretches out the whole story of both sides. Actually, the last movie ends at the beginning of the first movie.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the same movie.
Okay, cool. Well, you're on the same movie.
I just got this. I got the title wrong then.
Yeah, aisle 3 in the foreign section.
Yeah, upper right hand section.
All right, so next character, real quick. Superman. How do we want to see Superman? Branson Boykin is having his eyes fall out of his head because he's trying to figure this out.
I honestly,
I am tired of Superman. Let's move on from Superman. Let's go somewhere else. Give me Swamp Thing.
Look,
a proper Swamp Thing.
I love what Superman represents. I love the fact that he started the entire idea of a comic book with a superhero in it. He is the first. He is the original. And so I love what he represents. But he is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard to write a story where, because my big thing is if your hero is immortal and undefeatable, you don't really have a story because there's no conflict. If
Say it louder for the people in the back.
If there's no possible way your hero can lose, you don't really have a story.
Mm-hmm.
Because Superman can essentially do everything. And I understand why that was done again because of going back to some of the origin story of how he came to be. I understand why he was written that way, but it is so hard to write a Superman story where I feel like there are actual stakes involved, you know, and because he's so, even if you take him and send him through the galaxy, you would almost have to put him on a red sun to put him in a position where it would actually be a compelling story. Otherwise, he's just going to super speed himself and turn the world backwards and turn back time and everything will be fine again.
I tell you what I do enjoy is when DC Universe does their animated Superman, Public Enemies. I love that one.
That was a good one.
Yeah. But see, again, it's animated. It's not live action. For some reason, they think live action, we just run out of resources. And the one that they recently...
DC's already proven that they can't do live action if it's not Batman, so...
I love Aquaman. I don't know what you're talking about. And I enjoyed the first Wonder Woman.
I'm just saying, with their track record...
Zack Snyder's the Snyder Cut was great.
And that the Life and Death of Superman that they did part 1 and part 2, they did a combination of Jerry O'Connell, the voice for it. I like the first half, the second half, it's okay, but it's still much better than again live action Superman.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking about it while you guys have been ranting at each other as far as and my initial thought was you can't really do a movie with Superman in it and it not be action adventure, because I mean that's really what Superman, that's all it really seems like what you can do with Superman. But after some serious thought, I think Superman in a comedy would be fantastic.
Like, no, that I agree with you.
Have Clark Kent trying to retire as a superhero and tried not to use his superpowers in everyday stuff. That would be hilarious. I would watch that movie. That would be the first Superman movie in the last 30 years that I would pay money to go see.
Yeah.
Have him do a TV show. Call Three's a Company, since he loves to be in a love triangle like everyone else.
That's just lazy writing because it gets
the dollars. That's why it's lazy writing.
Oh my gosh. So for me with Superman, because again, your guys are right. It's so difficult to write with that kind of thing. If you weren't going to do a slice of life movie with Superman, because it's just you can't really have real conflict. I feel like slice of life, you can generate everyday conflict for him.
Yeah.
I think that you treat him the way that they should be treating a Hulk movie, whereas you have this infinite ability, but there is a reason why he can't seem to figure out how to control the strength. That is his great conflict, is having to constantly peel back from 100% to something else. And I think that if you were to create a film, an action film, where there's a legitimate fear of him losing control and hurting people, I think that would make for a good story with Superman.
See, what you just described is the entire plot line of the entire Injustice saga.
Really?
And yeah, because the Injustice Gods Among Us is basically the Joker tricks Superman into killing Lois Lane. He doesn't know it's Lois Lane, but he tricks him into it, and he loses his mind. And he basically says, I'm done. I've got the power to make the world right, so that's what I'm going to do. And he sets himself up as the world's ruler. And because he's Superman, nobody can stop him.
Right.
And so the Justice League basically splits down the line between people who think, okay, yeah, we've got the power. Let's just make the world a better place because we said so.
Right.
And then the others who side with Batman that says that's far overstepping our roles as superheroes.
Right.
We're not supposed to be gods to these people. We're supposed to be protectors. And so now I never saw the animated movie that was done, but the comic series. Oh, really? Well,
yeah,
the comic
it wasn't
series,
good. It was rubbish. It was bland.
There are very few comic series that I binge read back to back to back because they're there. But I found Injustice on Hoopla, and every time, I mean, I would finish one book and immediately download the next one.
Wow.
Because that's exactly what they explore. What happens when Superman doesn't care?
Well, they made a movie about it.
Yeah, the Injustice animated movie. That's what I'm talking about.
No, I'm not. No, I'm talking about a live action movie.
I think it was Superman 3. I think.
You're talking about the Zack Snyder film?
I'm talking about Brightburn.
Oh, you're talking about Brightburn.
Yeah, the movie that sucked.
Yeah.
I never saw that one.
See, Brightburn's one of the reasons I actually just talked about Brightburn with somebody today about the fact that it was a horror type film with a superhero undertone.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So next character is.
I'm sorry. Why is it that
No.
every good Superman story will have Batman in it? It's not Superman
Because Batman is a better superhero to watch.
Yeah.
I concur. I think it's they're so polar of each other, and Batman brings in the foil of
brings it
Superman.
out of him.
All right. Next hero, Captain America. I'm going to start off with this one. I would love to see Captain America in a covert operation type of film, war film, not necessarily a spy film, but kind of a covert type of film where he's having to walk the line of where his Boy Scout morals are and what he has to do to defend the country. Branson?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Did you read Secret Avengers?
I did not.
Okay, in the Marvel Comics, Steve Rogers, I can't remember. It's been so long now. I can't remember exactly where it falls into, but he basically builds a covert team.
Oh, wow.
And he's in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I can't remember if he's Captain America and Sam Wilson or no, I don't think he's Captain America. I think someone else is Captain America, but it's Steve Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
But he has a covert team. Beast is on it, Valkyrie, Black Widow, Scott Lang, Ant-Man. But that's exactly that story. They're a covert team. And they have to involve themselves in things that are off the books, that aren't exactly, and it was fun because Steve Rogers is the ultimate Boy Scout.
Right.
So he's having to make those kinds of decisions. And I think a movie aspect of that, it was very Mission Impossible-y.
I can see that.
It was Mission Impossible with Marvel characters.
Yeah.
So I think that would be really cool to see Steve Rogers. It would probably have to be Steve Rogers because Captain America, the Star Spangled Shield, that's too bright and vibrant to be a covert type thing.
Right.
So it would probably have to be about Steve Rogers specifically. But I think that would be a fun story to see him in.
That's cool. John, how about you, bud?
I'm going to tip my hand at a current existing property, but I would love to see it as a movie nonetheless. I would like to see Captain America in a period piece.
Yeah.
To specifically reference Marvel 1602.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That was a great series of books. Kevin, did you read those?
No.
Dude, you need to check those out. Those were really good.
I'm still waiting on my copy of Pistol Fist to come in before.
I want to see that as a movie.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
That would be neat. All right, Kevin, how about you? Captain America? What kind of movie would you want to see him in?
I like to see him doing this secret missions against the Nazis. Like I wanted when I saw the first Avenger, and then it's like, okay, now we got to skip on and just make this $1 million. So I'm like, okay,
yep.
Just
I resent them becoming a mega million thing myself as well.
Yeah, I mean that's all. I mean, I think it's what most people would have wanted, but it wouldn't have furthered all the other CGI filled characters and films.
Dig it. I dig it. All right, jumping down my list real quick. Black Widow. Where would you guys want to see Black Widow? For me, I want it to be a hardcore spy film. Like, just straight out. I feel like the film that they did at Black Widow was fine, but it was disservice by not making it just a straight up old school spy film across the board.
I agree. I think that just the way her character is designed, like even when they were advertising the movie, the way they did the logo, it had a very James Bond feel because you saw the silhouette walking and all you saw was the Widow symbol on her belt.
Right.
So yeah, Black Widow is someone that would, I think, lend itself to a pure spy thriller.
Word.
Yeah.
Totally. John, how about you?
See, this is, it gets a little bit more tricky for me because I'm not super well versed within her mythos to be able to speak on directly towards her. I don't know. I mean, like part of me is like thinking something in the vein of like spy thriller, in the vein of like a Jason Bourne thing where she's on the outs with governmental agency and she has to go dark and in the same sense prove her own innocence.
That would be good. That'd be worth seeing.
That would be fun.
Yeah. But in the same sense, it's just like I feel like there's more to that character that I don't know about to really. I feel like there could be a better answer that I'm not knowledgeable enough to be able to give.
Right. Give you that. All right. Kevo.
Yeah. Oh, I want to see her in the bottom of the mountain.
What?
Oh, wait, we already got that. Yeah, I'll agree with John.
Just so kind of a Jason Bourne type of movie for Black Widow?
Yep, exactly the way how she was written. I don't want to see her flying off of a 50-mile spaceship falling down on a bunch of rocks, one after another.
Now, remind me, she was originally affiliated with the KGB, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how they written their story, yeah.
I would, you know what movie I would like to see her in? I would like to see her in a Cold War era, late Cold War era movie of her trying to get out of the KGB and defect to the United States.
That would be fascinating.
That would be fun.
That'd be really good.
Something else.
I'm kind of surprised they haven't done that already. That seems like that would just write itself.
Because there's no big monster fight at the end. There's no bad guy. You need bad guys. Stupid bad guys.
Well, to be fair, like
Kevin, do you need a hug?
No, I just get tired of Marvel. DC.
Come here, Kevin. Let me put my arms around you.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate it.
You don't have to rub his back like that, John. Calm down.
Okay, I've got the burlap sack. We ready?
Oh, don't you start. Don't you start.
Oh, we're not doing that on this show? My bad.
No.
Okay, sorry.
Get that thing away from me.
Check out the link in the description below for the Leprechaun episode of The Bottom Shelf. All right, so I'm going to do two more. Doctor Strange. How do we want to see Doctor Strange?
Fantasy movie.
Now, define that.
Define fantasy? Like, I want to see him like in some kind of otherworldly Lord of the Rings type movie, exploring the outer realms and magic and swords and yeah.
As fun as that would be, I think it would be interesting to make it urban fantasy.
Like, how does that work out?
Dresden File type stuff, where he's dealing with mystical, magical things that are under the radar that aren't making themselves known. He's almost like a
Constantine.
Yeah, like a Constantine kind of thing. Like he's a PI of sorts. You know, someone comes to him with this. Hey, you know, my kid is having really weird dreams and these weird symbols keep appearing on our wall. So he goes to the house and looks at it and says, oh, this is scratching an itch somewhere. Seems like I remember that. So you see him go to his tomb and open up all these old books and that kind of thing. I would like to see Doctor Strange because we've seen him do the mega interdimensional warp. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. I would like to see him toned down to something more street level with like a urban fantasy type thing. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, we got movies right here. It's called Black Dynamite and Soul Man and
I don't think those fit what we're talking about.
Superfly. Come on.
You want to see?
Bruh, I have the Superfly soundtrack on vinyl, dude.
It's a solid soundtrack. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
All right, so Kevin, you want to see Doctor Strange and Superfly?
Why not? We're already going all kinds of weird directions. Let's just go there.
I would watch that too. That sounds like it'd be interesting. I mean, that big high collared cape would make more sense with the disco soundtrack. I'm not gonna
lie. You're not lying,
brother. I'm going to show you some magic you ain't never going to see.
See him on some platforms with the fish in the heels.
We don't need the fish. You don't need the fish in the heels. That's overkill. We're not going Wayans Brothers, okay?
I'm gonna get you, sucker.
Yes, one of my favorite movies. I love that movie. He died from all the gold chains. Too much gold.
That's funny. Okay, so last character I'm throwing out there, and I'm throwing it out there because there have been rumors in the wind for years about this happening, and I need it to take place and done well.
Please,
I need this, guys.
Please,
Jonah
say what I
Hex.
think.
Spawn.
Oh,
Yeah. You're naming everyone that's already been in movies. I want to name someone that hasn't been in the movie yet, or that they screwed. Oh, well, they did screw Spawn.
They did screw up Spawn royally, and they
I
screwed up
was
Jonah
really
Hex.
hoping you were going to say The Shadow.
I want to see Shadow too. All right, fine. We'll jump to the Shadow. Give me the Shadow. Branson Boykin, how do you want the Shadow?
That could go so many ways and still be accurate to the property. You could do the whole crime thing, solving a crime. Because he's like a psychic mental thing, you could do a whole urban fantasy thing. Like if you've got someone else who can manipulate minds the way he can, you could have a battle of wills, that kind of thing. You could do his origin story and do this find yourself travel thing where he actually travels and learns how to manipulate the minds of men and learns about evil. So many beautiful stories that could be written about the Shadow without.
And then eventually meets up with Bruce Wayne and they cross. They fight crime.
Yes.
If you already, I know we already read the crossovers because I'm a huge Shadow fan. So
yes,
I read the crossovers. Yes, make listen to a film. I mean, the way Marvel's going, DC needs to start owning everyone now.
John, how about you, man? The Shadow.
I'm going to say something that's going to make all of you very sad.
You don't know the Shadow.
No, that's not what I was going to say.
That's okay. I can bring the movie up and
I don't care about the Shadow as a property.
Well, okay. I don't care that you don't care, but I'm going to show you just to show you how much I care. How about that?
The Shadow knows.
John, you are the evil that lurks in the hearts of men.
I've even listened to episodes of the radio show.
Yes, please do.
I have
on YouTube.
Oh, okay. I've downloaded them onto my Zune and listened to them while I was at work. Mm-hmm. I was more entertained by listening to the cigarette commercials.
Did you listen?
What about the commercials for Blue Coal? Those were my favorites.
Blue Coal. Every home should need Blue Coal.
Your home is without Blue Coal. You don't know what warmth is.
Camel
like
cigarettes.
The epitome of John Haru's soul.
They satisfy the T-zone for taste and throat.
Oof.
So have you listened to what a certain particular audience actually did back in late 90s in their own version of the Shadow radio show?
Mm-mm. No, really?
They did the same thing with Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone during the 90s. You remember? They sold some of the CDs at Hollywood Video. You wasn't working there at that time. Where is it?
We didn't have CDs. We only had DVDs and VHSs.
Yeah, but they had it was a limited time that Hollywood Video was actually selling Twilight Zone radio shows that had voices from Adam West. It had something Star, Mike Starr, and loads of other actors and actresses.
I feel like I missed out.
You can listen to them on YouTube, man. They're phenomenal. Each one of them is about like 45 minutes long. So
right.
And there's no commercial, so that's even better.
I don't know, man. I feel like there needs a Blue Coal commercial. We may make a Blue Coal commercial just for this episode of Geek Devotions or Comm Talk. All right. So John doesn't care. Kevin, your ideal Shadow?
My ideal Shadow? Yeah, like that. Where he's like starting off, and he's looking for him whatever journey he's taking. Sort of like what we saw beginning, kind of with Batman Begins, but a little bit longer. Spending a bit more time, and
then, like he becomes the Shadow at the very end of the movie. Mm-hmm. So the whole movie is about him becoming the Shadow.
And then we can get the middle when he's like going back to this his city and everything else. That, or I wouldn't mind seeing a remake of the Phantom if they do it proper, if they do it right. I mean, I love the Phantom. I like the Phantom. It's cheesy with everything else, but I would love to see another Phantom.
Yeah, I don't understand the Phantom hate. I mean, I get it's not the best movie ever, but for what it was, I actually really enjoyed it.
It was all right.
Hey, that was
So-
one of the best villains of any superhero film ever.
See, Dallas, you didn't say the one that I was hoping you were going to say that was on the
What
list.
are you going to say, Dylan?
Let's do this. This is our final question for you guys. What is a hero that you want a specific kind of genre? Like you've been like, I need this to happen. What is that? So, John, what is it?
Blade coming of age.
Blade was on the original list. I'm not gonna lie, that would be fantastic.
Are you talking about like what, the Vampire Blade?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I want a Blade. I want a Blade movie that's a coming of age movie.
I can see that.
Okay.
The fact that you're saying that while pointing the knife in your hand just makes it that much more serious.
Right.
I'm scared. We need to get this guy this movie now before he hurts someone.
I'm curious how they play out Blade in the upcoming phase of MCU. They
are they
teased him.
Are they going to make another Blade movie?
Yeah, they actually teased him at the end of Eternals.
Is it going to be Wesley Snipes again?
No, unfortunately.
I don't care.
All right,
That's probably most people's reactions. Like, Wesley Snipes? No. Okay, forget it. Who cares?
Kevin, who is your go-to superhero that you want a movie, and what genre do you want him in?
I'm just thinking, like, I really, really desired and want a proper Swamp Thing. I really want a proper Swamp Thing. I'm tired of Swamp Thing getting so screwed over every single time. They're like, we got one, then they make a TV show. We got one, I would cancel it. Oh, we got another one, we cancel it. It's like, stop doing that. That and Jonah Hex. Jonah Hex could do it good for television series.
Yeah.
How do you define a Swamp Thing movie? How would you define a proper Swamp Thing movie?
Like, actually, him just trying to find a cure for cancer or whatever disease, find a cure for COVID, that something, I don't know. He's finding a cure for something, and he's actually in a middle of like just someone coming against him, and he becomes Swamp Thing, but actually like in the Alan Moore style, how it was.
So
the Alan Moore series.
Do you want to go to the link where you discover that Swamp Thing is not the actual person, but rather it is actually an entirely different being that's absorbed his mind?
Yes.
Okay.
That. And then he could defeat freaking Superman.
I dig it. Branson, your go-to character. You want a proper film of.
I've got two ideas, and I can't decide between the two because they're so similar. I want either a decent street-level Spider-Man movie where he's solving crimes or rescuing people in the streets and the alleys. He's not off with the Avengers stopping some cosmic threat or something like that. Like he is, you see him using his science, you see him struggling with making the date, that kind of thing. Or Nightwing, the early years in Bloodhaven.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that would be a fun. But that might need to be more of like a series than a movie.
Yeah.
But that whole concept, he's freshly separated from Batman.
Mm-hmm.
He's in Bloodhaven trying to figure out what he's going to do with his life. I read the ARC series that Scott McDaniel illustrated, and it was wonderful storytelling. So something in that vein.
Yes, I can see that. That would be, man. See that kind of takes away one of my thought process now, but because a proper Nightwing would be good. Move away from Bat, go into one of the plenty of other characters we have in the Bat world. That would be good. I know they tried doing it with Titans and it just did not come out right at all.
Well, see, but that wasn't a Nightwing show. That was a Titans show. That was to set up the team. I'm talking about something that sets up specifically Nightwing. He's on his own in Bloodhaven doing his own thing. Yeah,
totally. So, man, that Nightwing sounds so good if they were to pull that off too. I kind of want what you brought up, the idea for the Batman, where the entire thing, you don't see him in the bat suit at all until like the end of the movie.
Right.
Which, for context, Branson and I think we were teenagers. I had that idea for that kind of movie. That's what I wanted. I think one of the Dark Knight movies had just come out or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, we need where it's just street level detective work, working a case, and then becomes a bat. At the same time, I want the same thing for Spawn. I don't want Spawn was mishandled. Now they had plans to go on and do some other stuff with the movie, but I want the Spawn that lurks in the darkness. I want him to be an eternal shadow that comes out occasionally. And dealing with the psychological conversations of, because Spawn's a deep psychological conversation in a lot of ways of dealing with loss, identity, trying to figure out who he is as a individual and recreate a life while not being able to reclaim anything of his previous life. There's a lot of great drama there, but he's always in the shadows, and I want to see some of that.
That
There's
would be
one
fun.
last thing I would say, only for a series, because I love the character so much, and I'm probably the only one who does. Howard the Duck.
There's a big pull for a new Howard. Like, people are wanting a Howard the Duck ever since he was in the Guardians of the
Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's like, please, you could do the serial shorts or whatever shorts, you know, the animated shorts, whatever, you know, you could do it with Howard the Duck.
Right.
He's sarcastic. He's funny. I love it. But
he used Spider-Man's bathroom one time. That's my only knowledge of, you know.
Well, guys, we're going to go ahead and land this. It's been a really great conversation. A lot of strong opinions in the room, to say the least. But I want to hear from you
Mine
guys.
was the correct one.
What are your guys' thoughts on superhero movies? The genre? What is a superhero? Is John correct? Is Zorro not a superhero? Or is he a superhero like he really is?
Or is Kevin correct like he usually is 98% of the time?
Let us know. Reach out to us. You guys can find us on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just look for Geek Devotions. This right here was kind of a mini crossover, actually, with our friends at the Bottom Shelf. So John, what is the Bottom Shelf?
The Bottom Shelf is the best podcast that you should already be listening to. It's a division of Geek Devotions that discusses terrible movies that we watch so you don't have to. And we determine whether or not they deserve to be labeled as being terrible. So go listen to that. And if you don't, you're not a real Christian. So, and I question your salvation.
Whoa.
Geek Devotions does not support the final statements that John made before being jettisoned out into space after our taco machine.
No, I kid. That's my dry sarcasm. If I offended anybody, I don't care.
So, but yeah, hey, check out the Bottom Shelf. We actually have a separate Facebook page, a separate RSS feed for it. Just look for the Bottom Shelf. Look for the Bottom Shelf podcast on Facebook and on Instagram. If you see stuff about alcohol, that's the wrong Bottom Shelf, because apparently that's a podcast that's out there too that has been around since 2017, but Google fails to recognize us. So just check the links in the description down below. It'll be safer. John is also part of 6,000 other podcasts, including Playing Games with Strangers and several other things. Again, links down below for all his stuff. Kevin, where can people find you?
Anywhere but here. You can also find me on the Bottom Shelf, which could be the best or the worst thing you've ever listened to in your ears. And if you don't listen to it, you are not a Christian. I'll further what John says.
Geek Devotions does not promote the final statements of Kevin.
You can also find me on YouTube, Instagram, sometimes Twitter, and other platforms as the Dapper Man Reviews. That is THEDAPPER reviews, because for some reason someone keeps asking diaper. It's like, no, Dapper.
The Diaper Man. That's Kevin's superhero alter ego. That I stamp that.
It's
Diaper Man.
It's Quail Man before he became a man.
Wouldn't that make him Quail Woman?
No, what?
You know what? I'm just
Quail Boy.
We're not on the Bottom Shelf podcast, so I can't say certain things to you unless we're back on that one.
Branson, how can people get a hold of you, bud?
I run I'm a short section of CommTalk called Bees, Views, and Reviews, where I promote faith-based, family-friendly comics and the creators that make them. You can contact me via email, branson.boykin@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me through all of Geek Devotion social media. I'm usually there anyway.
Awesome.
You say short, but you don't look so short from where I'm standing.
What?
You say I'm a short review section, and I'm like, you don't look short from where I'm at.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate
It'd be funny if you were in Ireland, is what you said.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, if you enjoyed the Bottom Shelf, make sure you check it out. If you enjoyed this banter, you should check out the Bottom Shelf. But hey, thanks for being part of Geek Devotions. Thanks for checking out our stuff. Do us a favor, leave a review on Apple Podcasts and not Podbean, but Podchaser. And let people know what your thoughts are of CommTalk, whether or not you like it, and share this out with other individuals. So,
Pod Garden?
Huh? No, not Pod Garden. Pod Chaser.
Pod Garden.
No,
That's where your first 14 episodes are.
Podcast Garden's dead. All right. Until next time, stay devoted. Peace and love.